Welcome to Edgework on the Hammer Betting Network. We're back for the fifth Wednesday of the season already. Zack Bodenstein with Dennis Bernstein, DB, Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period. Good morning, boys. And I want to start talking about yesterday's games and just get into it right away with a team that Dave wants to talk about, a team that's good, a team that's fun, and a team that is winning people a lot of money. The New Jersey Devils, Dave, let's just dive into them. I mean, they keep winning. They just beat Calgary in back-to-back games, a team that people think are for real. So let's dive into it. What do you think about Calgary? What's your take on them?
The Flames. Wow.
Sorry, the Devils. The Devils.
Right. Okay. Flames. Yeah. They got some work to do. But this team, the New Jersey, I'm not a big hat guy. But I'm sporting the Devils today. I mean, they're just rolling, just steady, just consistent, getting contributions up and down the lineup. Jesper Bratt's been fantastic. Even when he's not putting up points, he's creating chances and opportunities, getting some shots. Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, John Marino's been a stud on that back end. I mean, they're just getting up and down contributions from the lineup. And Vitek Vanacek, with Blackwood out for the next 3 to 6 weeks, I mean, Vanacek has been fantastic and hasn't really missed a beat. So to see the resilience from this team when they're down, to be able to come back, and there's no all right, well, whatever, we're down, we'll try to come back. No, they're pushing and they're pressing all the right buttons. So it's an exciting team to watch right now, and I'm all in on the Devils, and I'm propping it up. I'm doing pretty much everything right now with respect to this group and some of the weapons on this team, because DB, lines 1 through 4, they're getting help.
Oh, that's what happens with good teams. They get depth scoring,
yeah.
And their puck possession game has been unbelievable. You look at the advanced stats on this team; they are crushing it with respect to I didn't see that happening, to be honest with you. I knew they'd be better if they were healthy, and that's the thing. Blackwood's out, which isn't a great thing, but 3 to 5 weeks probably with a knee sprain. Vanacek's been amazing. When you have two centers like Hughes and he should drive play, you should succeed, and this team is succeeding because they're finishing at the net. It's been a great start for this team. And remember, Devils fans, you were chanting "Fire Lindy" after 2 games, and now I think they're 10-1 over the last 11. So it's been a great run for this team. We'll see if they can keep it up for 82 games, Zach.
Yeah, people don't forget about those chants. So, hopefully they can rescind those. I jumped the gun a little bit, Dave, because I do want to talk about Calgary quite a bit. They are obviously not having the start to the season that they wanted. 6 straight losses. Markstrom sub-900 save percentage. Huberdeau, I know, didn't play yesterday. He's banged up, but it hasn't been a pretty start for him. Things just aren't really clicking in Calgary right now, a team that a lot of people had to run away with the division, at least some of them, and doesn't seem like that's the case right now with Vegas and Edmonton, even LA. So Calgary right now, Dave, not really clicking.
No, and sometimes, and people forget that sometimes when you make a number of changes, it takes a little bit of time for everyone to click and to gel and to find the right combinations that make sense. And that's what Daryl Sutter is tasked with, is trying to find the right combos that can work consistently over an extended period of time. Just because you've got Kadri and he's playing well, and he's a guy I definitely jump on. But when Huberdeau's healthy, how you're going to slot these guys, you can't just throw them all in there and be like, all right, go ahead, guys, go do your thing. Sometimes chemistry takes a little bit of time to build. I think they'll eventually be all right, and I think Markstrom will get out of this little funk. But I mean, they're going through a lot of teams, a lot of good teams, and this is just how it is throughout the NHL. It's an up and down type season. It's a roller coaster, and eventually things start to even out, and the good teams get good, and the mediocre teams kind of steady, and the bad teams, they prove to be pretty bad by the end of the year. So I think eventually Calgary will go on an incline, but you don't want to dig yourself too big of a hole here. And sometimes, again, it just takes a little bit of time to build that added chemistry. And now the frustration's setting in, so you've got to be able to ease those a little bit. Daryl's a tough guy, so sometimes it doesn't make it all that easier when you've got him behind the bench when you're going through that bit of a rut.
Anytime I get to tweak my buddy Daryl Sutter, I'm going to do it. So, yeah, it hasn't been a great start. You're right, Dave. This is not fantasy hockey. Right? You just don't plug in Huberdeau and Weegar. And you're right about Kadri. Kadri's been as advertised,
Yeah.
Every dollar they spend on him is going to be great value. But no Tanev, no Shillington. Their bottom pair are two inexperienced players, and it cost them the other night against the Islanders. But here's the thing. They're starting to blow leads now, and that's the big concern. Because they were against the Islanders. They dominated puck possession, Zach. They were shooting them 30-14 going into the third period. They let them off the hook. They let the Devils off the hook last night again. If you're a Calgary fan, you're fortunate because, yeah, Vegas is playing great. Do I think they're going to play 800 level hockey? No. But the rest of the division is up for grabs at this point in time. I think Vegas will come back to earth, but it takes time to gel. It's just not that easy. You just can't plug in Uberdo and say, okay, he's going to get the 115 points that Johnny Hockey got. It just doesn't work like that. It takes time. This is a really solid team that's well coached, but we'll see. They're being challenged right now because they can't find ways to win. They're finding ways to lose right now.
So long-term, DB, you're a believer in them. I mean, any team that has Lindholm, Kadri, Backlund down the middle, right? And the goaltending that they could have gotten, maybe they'll get the goaltending they got last year. So you expect them to bounce back on paper, at least. You think they're a good team?
Oh, they're a very solid team on paper, and we leave out Taro Toffoli and Mangiapane. And the thing with Markstrom, maybe it's better that Markstrom doesn't play well in the beginning of the season and saves it for the end of the season because he always seems to run out of gas. He hasn't been good in these games. Yeah, they haven't played great in front of him, but he's given up goals that he shouldn't have. So, but yeah, on paper, Zach, I would think they will be a contender for the Pacific Division title when we get to March and April.
Yeah. Let's talk about another struggling team, one that Dave has a little bit of a focus on with goaltending, the St. Louis Blues. They've lost 8 straight games. Hasn't been pretty. Everybody's production's down up front, to be honest. And, of course, Binnington, we thought maybe could have that bounce back here. At least he came out of the gate strong, but hasn't really been there yet. Dave, what are you looking at for St. Louis now? Because if there's any time to capitalize on them in terms of bets, it's right now. This is probably their all-time low.
Yeah, and look, Ryan O'Reilly after the game yesterday saying, we just can't figure it out. We can't find answers. He was asked if it's a chemistry issue, and no, I mean, they're all buddies. Everybody gets along. But if you're not showing it on the ice, if you're not building it on the ice, you guys can be best friends off the ice. It doesn't freaking matter if you're not going to make the playoffs and compete for a championship. So they're trying to find answers. And you start to notice now, because it's 8 regulation losses in a row. Like that's 0 points in 8 games. They're not even squeaking out something in OT or in a shootout. It's 0 freaking points. That's not good. They're last in the Western Conference right now. And I talked about digging yourself a hole. I mean, this is getting to be a pretty deep hole that St. Louis is putting themselves in. And it's up and down the lineup. Yeah, Binnington has to be better. Yeah, the offense needs to carry more. Yeah, the defense needs to contribute. I mean, it's up and down. And eventually they'll squeeze out a win, but and hopefully that starts to trend them in the right direction, or at least for them and for Blues fans. But you're right. I mean, if there's an opportunity to jump all over a team that's struggling, I mean, St. Louis is the one. And again, you go back to Ryan O'Reilly's comments from yesterday. He doesn't know what else he can do. And the answer has to be from within. But when you start saying that kind of stuff, it shows me that there's so much frustration now in this group that maybe a couple more games to bank on them getting an L before they start to kind of climb out of it. But it's not pretty in St. Louis.
Yeah, O'Reilly's not the only one. I get Craig Berube's pregame and off-day press conferences. He doesn't know what's going on. He says at one end of the ice, we're giving up layup goals, equivalent layups in the NBA, where guys are wide open. They can't put the puck in the net. Going back to the Kings game about 10 days ago, it's like they had a 3-on-0 with Jordan Kyrou, and they didn't get a shot on goal. Yeah. This team can't score. So if you're playing this team, you got to play the under on the goal totals. Without question, they can't find a way to score. Jordan Kyrou is like -7, -17. This team will get better, but the players don't know, the coach doesn't know, the talent's there, the roster's there. It's one of those stretches that you go through during the season, but it's pretty depthful. I would say, okay, they might lose 7 in a row, maybe 4, like they said, maybe 0-4-3, not to this degree. And last night, yeah, they were in the game, but you never got a sense they were going to win the game at 1-1. And that's a challenge with this team. So, yeah, I think offensively this team's not scoring a lot of goals, so you've got to play the unders in the next round of games for this team.
And two teams that have been really good that were both in action yesterday, the Islanders and then also the Kraken, a team that DB threw a little bit of shade at to start the year, right? You said they won their one game. But you know what? Give credit where it's due. What's that, Dave?
What the heck's going on in Seattle?
Crazy. I know, right? I mean, they've won 5 straight. They're getting the goaltending from Martin Jones, a guy that I've probably been the biggest critic of. And the depth scoring's there. The defense is really shored up. I mean, last year, the defensive metrics were fine, right? It was just like historically bad goaltending. So they're winning now. They're getting the goaltending. Are you a believer, or is this just something that's going to phase out by the end of the year?
I talked about things kind of evening up throughout the course of the season. I think things will start to even up for Seattle as well when all is said and done. But for now, look, Andre Burakovsky is tossing up points left, right, and center for a team like Seattle that doesn't have that superstar presence right now. Yeah. And Matty Beniers is going to have a hell of a year and all that, but Andre Burakovsky is really, really rolling right now. And if I'm looking at the Seattle team, I'm looking at him going, okay, this is a player that's almost a point a game. He's got 9 assists, 13 points so far on the season. He's a guy that I'm probably banking on getting at least a point in their games moving forward. Again, I think eventually they're going to start to even out. And look, Martin Jones, it's a good story. And I think, you're going to ride, no question, you're going to ride the hot hand, and you're going to see how he performs. It's a contract year for him. He signed that 1-year deal. He's kind of taking advantage of a situation because Grubauer is out. Maybe later on he ends up getting moved to a contender if they are truly out of it by the trade deadline. But him, Burakovsky, are real standouts for me so far on the season for Seattle. And I don't get it. It's just a good mix, and they're clicking. And sometimes that's all it takes. You just kind of roll with it, and you get that confidence. And it's opposite of St. Louis right now. So all the power to them, and I hope all the Kraken fans are loving this because it's nice to see. A lot of people thought this was going to be how they were going to perform in season 1. Took a little bit of time, but it's good to see. The Seattle fans are jacked about it, which is great. I just don't get it.
Okay, so if you bet on the Rangers last night, you should have known that coming into the game, Shesterkin was 1-6-1 against them over the last 8, and now he's 1-7-1.
Not good.
He just cannot find a way to beat this team, whether it's UBS, whether it's Nassau, whether it's Madison Square Garden. Islanders, look, it did good. And the weird thing is, you look at Matt Barzal, who's a point-a-game player, hasn't scored a goal yet in 15 games, 14 games, which is crazy. But if their wingers can score, Zach, like they can do things. And now they didn't start off the season really great, and now they've gotten hot. It's going to be because you know what you're going to get from Pagnotta, from Brock Nelson, and from Barzal. Barzal's eventually going to score. He's going to be a point-a-game player. It's their wingers. It's the Wallstroms. It's the Parisis. It's the Palmieris. It's the Beauvilliers. If they can get scoring on the wing, they can make some noise in that division because the division, Carolina's good defensively, not great offensively. The Rangers are trying to find their way, and I think that if you're a Ranger fan, you got to be a little bit troubled by the lack of scoring on this team. But the Islanders are a really good story, and the question is, guys, how close can this team be to the one 2 seasons ago that went to a conference final, lost in 7 games to Tampa? They're not there yet, but certainly if they're going to get better offensive play from their wingers, they're going to be a dangerous team, and the team that might be a sleeper when you're betting on them some nights.
Yeah, they seem like the kind of team that either goes to the conference final or just misses the playoffs. It's weird. But, Palmieri's a guy, you kind of forget that he signed that deal that he did because he's very forgetful on that team. But, he's starting to put the puck in the net on the power play especially. So that's something encouraging going forward, DB. I'm glad you brought him up because that's somebody that you could bank on for maybe an anytime goal scorer and get some good value on it as well. So let's move into tonight's games. The first one we're going to talk about is Vancouver and Montreal. Both these teams won yesterday, but I'm inclined to think there are going to be a lot of goals in this one, Dave. I mean, Demko hasn't led in less than 3 all season. Sam Montembeault in net, he's been a good story, but who knows what you get from him. And Vancouver's offense is heating up right now. So at least for me, if I'm looking at this game, I'm looking at the over.
Yeah, I think so. back-to-backs for both of these teams, as I said. But I think the Canucks are. I mean, I'm taking them race to 3 in this one because I agree with you. I think there are going to be a lot of goals in this one, and sometimes it's either a really tight game off back-to-backs, or it's just a free-for-all. And based on how these teams have played, and maybe more so the Canucks, I think this has free-for-all written all over it. So I'm taking, like I said, I'm taking Vancouver on the race to 3, and I agree with you. I think there are going to be a lot of goals in this one. It's certainly going to be an interesting one. We saw yesterday Hoffman getting a couple goals, build a little confidence in himself. So maybe he pots one in again tonight, keeps that little streak going, that little bit of confidence with him on Montreal's side. But I think this is going to be an interesting back and forth type game with, like you said, a lot of goals. So I'm riding that one. Plus, I mean, the Canucks kind of have to, right? They can't take their foot off the gas, especially after Jim Rutherford tossed the entire team under the bus. Everybody's focusing so much on team structure and Bruce Boudreau. Okay, but you can implement the structure, but if the players aren't playing to that structure, it's not necessarily on the coach. It's on the players to get their heads out of their you-know-what. So I think that we'll see another back-to-back W for the Canucks with a lot of goals in this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the win, but yeah, neither one of these teams really care that much about playing defense. So I got to think that my prop in this game, though, Vancouver, 11 of the first 13 games they've scored in the first 10 minutes, 8 of the last 10. That's a pretty easy bet. And because Dave and I both think this is going to be a high-scoring game, I think Vancouver gets to score here in the first 10 minutes of the game. That would be the prop I have for that game.
And they have 17 goals in their last 3 games. A guy I want to focus on maybe for props, I don't know if you guys were thinking about him, but Bo Horvat is on a tear right now. And he's always been a good 200-foot player. But this is his offensive breakout, and he's got 8 goals, 26 shots in the last 5 games. He's plus 145 for an anytime goal scorer, minus 170 for an anytime point, minus 170 to get over 2.5 shots. Personally, I would be all over all of those, considering what he's been doing lately, DB. He just looks like a brand new player. They shuffle their lines quite a bit. They like to go 3 deep, but Bo Horvat looks tremendous right now.
He looks fantastic, and that's under the backdrop of conversations about trading him. Will they extend him? I would think they would, but and Rutherford said maybe if the team goes south that we look at some other options here, but he's certainly in a contract year, so he's responding, which is great to see. But yeah, he's been on a heater, and he's one of the reasons they're trying to get out of a hole has been through Bo Horvat's play.
It's going to cost them. So, and he wants that bank. So if he keeps it up, he's probably going to get north of what he's looking for, which is at least $7.5 million. So, and depending on term, I've heard talks of $8 million a year. So, yeah, he wants to keep this going. There's no question. And I mean, Rutherford said it. He's glad that he's doing this. He's glad that he's working out. If they can't get a deal, then that just means that they're going to get a hell of a haul for him closer to the trade deadline. So, either way, this is a win for kind of almost every party involved here. Bo wants to get his money. Bo's going to put up points.
We're like the contract year enthusiasts on this show. We're always talking about, go hard on the contract year, guys.
Yeah.
This guy's not due for a new contract, I don't think, at least. But Cole Caulfield hasn't gone pointless in 2 straight all season long, but he didn't score or, get an assist yesterday. But again, it hasn't happened in consecutive games all year long. I think it's only happened to Suzuki once, but pretty good props on Caulfield tonight. He's plus 150 for an anytime goal, minus 170 for an anytime point. Dave, would you look at Cole Caulfield tonight against the suspect Vancouver defense?
Yeah. I mean, you might as well throw me out there on that blue line. Won't really make a difference. I might block a shot or 2. But
you'd get in the way. You wouldn't block the shot, you'd get in the way.
It's still a block. It still shows up on the score sheet as a block. So if I'm in there, put me down for 2. And then a broken ankle, and there goes my season.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I like both of those. I might even stick on the goal side of things, quite frankly, rather than the point, just because the odds are a little bit better and a little more tilted in that favor. Cole's been fantastic. He's been absolutely fantastic since Marty St. Louis took over.
Yep.
That dynamic duo of Suzuki and Caulfield, I think they're second or third in the NHL as a combo, or at least in the top 5 anyway. This was a few days ago, so might have altered, but they're within the top 5 in the NHL in terms of duos that are putting up the most amount of points together. So, certainly you're not going to score every night. You're not going to get a point necessarily every night, just because of the way that the Canadians are. But those two guys, and Caulfield specifically, you lose out on a game where you don't put up a point. He's going to have that little bit of extra little oomph in his step because he's going to want to taste that again. So I wouldn't be shocked at all. I actually like that one. So I might go the goal route versus the point route just because the odds are a little bit more in that favor.
All right, so that's on Caulfield.
Most likely no Slafkovsky for the Canadians tonight as well, if that makes a difference to you if you're looking at this game based on his hit on Matt Luff last night.
And we know Josh Anderson won't play either. He's suspended too.
Second game of a suspension, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Pens and Caps. This is a weird one, right? I mean, both teams aren't really, trending upwards at the moment. Washington's really banged up. Maybe they get Orlov and Karlsson back tonight, but Pittsburgh, I don't really know what's happening there. I mean, it's been tough, 7 straight losses, 1-5-1 on the road. They're giving up a lot of goals. They're not getting the goaltending. DB, what are you looking at for this one? Is this another one where we're looking at overs? Is this one where you've got some props, an outright winner?
Yeah, I think if you're a Pittsburgh Penguin fan and they're leading after 2, you want to turn off the TV because you might not like what happens in the third period. Both these teams give up a lot of third period goals. This game is definitely going to go over in the third period, over a goal and a half. So that's my prop. Absolutely. Again, Washington is an average team at best, and they win games when Kemper plays well and they get some scoring like they did against Edmonton. Pittsburgh, it's a momentum thing. It's like with Calgary. They're just not playing well. They're blowing leads. You would think that with Gino and Sid and Letang, they wouldn't lack confidence. They lack confidence right now. And as Dave mentioned, the goaltending's been average. So I think this could be a high-scoring game, but I definitely think in the third period, these teams don't play great defense. You're going to see a lot of goals in the third period. I play over a goal and a half in the third.
Washington's given up a few leads themselves. So, I mean, this could be anybody's guess in this regard. The one thing I am going to take because of that, and because Pittsburgh's been Pittsburghing it for the last 7 games, the first team to score to win the game, I'm going no. Plus 165 on that one. So I'm expecting some type of collapse by whoever the heck scores first. Just gun it on the other team. If it's Pitt, all Washington. If it's the Caps, oh my God, Pittsburgh's going to win a game. So that's the direction that I'm going in on this one at plus 65. So I'm liking that one. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. You mentioned Zach Karlsson might be in. Orlov might be in. They skated yesterday. There was a bit of an optional practice for them, but those two guys got on the ice to kind of stretch their legs and see if they can get under them. So we'll see if they get into the mix, tonight. But this is just a head scratcher of a game for me because both of these teams are trying to find their way.
It looks like a 5-4 game to me, Zach. Yeah. I mean, if you want to,
it could be, yeah, totally.
Well. I don't think it's a 2-1 game, although I thought Minnesota and Kings last night would be, a little bit more high scoring. What do I know? So.
Well, Jari hasn't given up less than 3 since October 20th, and it's November 9th today. It hasn't been pretty for him. Again, the defense has been tough on both sides. Ovechkin, though, goals in 6 of his last 8, so we'll talk more about him later. But I'm certainly looking at Ovi for tonight. And then Brian Rust, too. Since Gensel came back, 18 shots in his last 4 games for Brian Rust. He had, I think, a goal waved off. He hit a couple posts. So I feel like he's due, so he's another guy that I want to touch for tonight's Pens-Caps game. But again, it's going to be tough. I just want the over. I don't know who's going to win. But I love that bet, Dave. That might be my favorite bet. Whoever gives up the first goal is going to win.
Yeah, and I'm going no. Like, forget about it. Like, again, both of these teams have been giving up too many leads. So yeah, if whoever scores first, yeah, the other team's winning.
As long as it's not the game plan for them. Carolina and Florida. So that's the third game that we're going to talk about for this one. Both teams are shooting a lot. Florida shoots they're averaging 40 shots a game. Carolina 37. Antti Ranta looks like he'll be in net, even if Freddie was playing. He hasn't been too sharp. Florida's goaltending, you never know there, Dave. So is this a third straight game that we're looking at for potentially a lot of scoring?
I've been battling this one because I think it should, but at the same time, I think both of these teams need to play a little bit more of a, not to steal Jim Rutherford's word, but structured game. So a little bit more, a little tighter. Now that probably means that it's going to hit the over now, but I just think that these two teams need to kind of clamp down a little bit and to play a little bit more controlled and confident. So I might take the under in this one, quite frankly, because I think both of these teams need to, for themselves, not so much to just show their fans and show everybody else. I think they just need to kind of hunker down and clamp things down in their own end or for their own right, just so that they can kind of get a little back on track. More so Florida, obviously, than Carolina. But I think I might go under in this one and then kind of see, where things kind of fall out. I am going to take, because it's pretty decent, an anytime goal from Alex Barkov at plus 155 right now. So I'm looking at Barkov to get on the score sheet. Again, I'm not expecting many goals in this one because I think things need to be clamped down in this game, but that's where I'm going. Even with Ranta in net, I think that's kind of how this ends up playing out, because typically when the backup's in, well, I guess in this case, yeah, because Freddie's clearly the number one. Teams tend to play a little bit more aggressive in front of them to try to bail out the goaltender. So you're going to see a little bit more maybe puck possession from Carolina in this one, but I think it's going to be a low-scoring game.
Remember the old saying, it's a 3-2 league, like 2-3 years ago, it's a 3-2 league?
Yeah.
Well, the team close, it's not a 3-2 league anymore, but the team closest to that DNA is Carolina. Right? So they are one of the slowest starting teams in the league. I think they've scored, I think their first periods have been over a goal and a half combined 3 times out of 11. They're not going to give up a lot. So even if they do find a way to score, this team, when they win, they still struggle to score. So I like the under a goal and a half in the first period. I don't think this will be a very start. And Florida's still trying to find their way without Huberdeau, without Uyghur. It's a different team. Kachuk's been suspended, so I like the under in this. And I would, as a bonus, I love Sebastian Aho. And it's the Carolina Sebastian Aho, not the Islanders Sebastian Aho. So I'll go with an anytime goal for Sebastian Aho, because if they do find a way to score, and they'll probably get 3 tonight. They'll probably win 3-2. I think Aho will figure in the scoring with a goal.
And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think Aaron Ekblad is coming back this week. I don't know if it's
Saturday. I think
it is Saturday. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's got no bearing on tonight. Carry on.
Well, but his replacement, Brandon Montour, has been really good. I actually had notes on him. He's minus 120 for an anytime point scorer, and he's got 33 shots over his last 6 games. This is a defenseman. No Matty Tkachuk on the power play, but maybe you look at Montour for something tonight. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so let's go into best props. So we did recap them a little bit. But just to for the segment's sake, let's just talk about them again. DB, your best prop bet or prop bets of the night.
I'll give you 4. Okay, we didn't talk about the other game, Minnesota. So the one guy who's going to score tonight, I would guarantee, is Kirill Kaprizov after getting thrown out in Los Angeles last night, because I'm sure he was frustrated. Drew gave a little business, cross-checked him on there. He swung a stick at him, got thrown out again. They wound up losing 1-0. If he's in the game, it's a different story. Kaprizov's going to score tonight against Anaheim. Vancouver will score in the first 10 minutes of the game tonight against Montreal. Carolina and Florida, under a goal and a half, first period. Pittsburgh and Washington, not a lot of premium on defense. So I like the over in the third period, over a goal and a half between the Penguins and the Caps.
And Dave, what about your props?
Well, I'm not as aggressive as DB, even though we were firing them out throughout the segment. But I am going to go. I know we talked about Pitt and the Caps in taking that one. The first goal is going to lead to a loss, so I'm going in that direction. But I'm also taking a Sidney Crosby anytime goal. So I don't know how this game's going to play out. I don't know where this is going to end up, but I'm taking the Sidney Crosby anytime goal in this one tonight for the Pittsburgh Penguins, along with the fact that whoever scores first is going to lose. So if you're a Penguins fan right now, you're going to want the Caps to score and vice versa. But I'm going in that direction. And then I'm taking the Canucks, as I mentioned earlier, the Canucks to on the race to 3 against the Canadiens tonight. Slavkovsky is having a hearing with the NHL's Department of Player Safety later today. We'll see if he gets into it tonight. Probably not. I would be surprised if there's not some type of levy that's going to have to be paid there. But Canucks race to 3. That's my other one for tonight. And because we didn't get to touch on Minnie and
Anaheim
and the Ducks, Trevor Zegras. I know it might be a cop-out, but I think
it is.
Yeah. Well, you're going Kaprizov, so I got to get somebody to battle against you in that one. So I'm going anytime goal for Z in this one.
Okay. I'll take Ovi anytime goals in 6 of his last 8. Pittsburgh, gives up a lot of goals. Why not? And then I'm going to stick with my guy, Bo Horvat, to get over 2.5 shots at -170. I might even go anytime goal scorer again for plus money, anytime points. He's just been so good. And, I see that continuing against the Habs. Best bets. Again, we talked a little bit about those, but Dave, we'll go back to you for your best bets.
Ooh. Well, I'm going to, if we're going to bank on Vancouver tonight, I'm going on Vancouver on that one. Vancouver for the W in this one, not only the race to 3, but I think the W in this one, to come out, go over to Eastern Canada, get a couple W's back to back. Ottawa last night, the Habs likely tonight. For me, I think that's the best one on the night. The other 3 games, it's a little bit tricky. Like Minnesota should beat the crap out of the Ducks.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some weird things going on in the NHL these days. So I think Vancouver more so than anything is probably the best bet in terms of getting a W tonight.
Yeah, I think the one best bet for me would be Minnesota. Was it -154 at Circa Sports? A motivated Kaprizov, a game that got away from them, and they still need to win games because their start wasn't great. I know it's on a back-to-back, but the Ducks are going to give up a lot of opportunities. I think it's a more motivated team tonight with an opportunity to win. So I like Minnesota to get to 2 tonight at Honda Center.
I think we're going to see quite a bit of goals in pretty much all the games tonight. So I'm loving it. I'm going with a couple of overs, over 6.5 in Pittsburgh, Washington, and then over 6.5 in Vancouver and Montreal. I think those are pretty safe bets. And like we talked about last week, even if they don't hit, I feel like it's a bet, or rather bet.
Feel good about them.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, both teams are scoring a lot. Both are giving up a lot.
You're not going to bat 1,000 every night, but, I mean, those are the swings that you take. To use a different sport analogy, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dave's a
Blue Jays
guy. Well, thanks for tuning in to this edition of Edgework on the Hammer Betting Network. Zack Bodenstein, Dennis Bernstein, Dave Pagnotta. We will see you next Wednesday.